Hello there. Welcome to my review of the Casebook of Sherlock Holmes, Series 1, Episode 5, The Illustrious Client. The episode begins with a man running down a woodland path, intercut with the dead body of a woman. He is running to her, and as he laments her falling over the edge of a cliff, with her dying words, she accuses him.
Why did you push me, Baron?
This is seemingly witnessed by a small boy. The man is the German Baron Gruner. We then cut to Holmes and Watson enjoying a steam in a Turkish bath before they meet with their client Sir James Damery. The prologue has definitely got enough intrigue in the opening scene to keep interest up, and as Sir James describes the most dangerous man in Europe,
I have had several opponents to whom that flattering term has been applied. But if your man is more dangerous than the late Professor Moriarty, is indeed worth meeting. May I ask his name?
Have you ever heard of Baron Gruner?
Holmes has of course already heard of him and firmly believes he murdered his wife and the small boy witness, despite him getting away with it. Damery explains that the daughter of a General Merville, Violet, is now being courted by the deadly Baron, and she is in love with him. We then meet the happy couple.
In marrying you, my darling, all my past sins shall be absolved.
These aren't sins you've told me of. These are slanders.
And Violet seems blinded by love. Of course, she has not seen what we have seen, but we are given the impression that she might still love him even if she had.
Well, then you will sympathise with the client in whose interest I am acting.
I did not understand that you were merely an intermediary. Who is the principal?
Sir James also reveals that he is not the client, but that the man who wishes to engage Holmes' services is an even more illustrious client. Holmes is at first put off by the secrecy.
I'm accustomed to having mystery at one end of my cases, but having it at both ends is too confusing. No.
But, unusually for Holmes, Sir James is able to convince him to take the case. We then see Baron Gruner and Violet again, and it is made clear she is completely under his spell. Holmes approaches Gruner directly, and after a tense standoff that sees them battle wits, in a scene perhaps even better than his first meeting with Moriarty, Gruner shows no fear.
She will no doubt give you an appointment. And she will listen. It will be to no avail, however.
But immense arrogance.
Did you know the French agent Lebrun? He was beaten in the Montmartre district of Paris and crippled for life.
By an odd coincidence, he had been inquiring into my affairs. Don't do it, Mr. Holmes. It's not a lucky thing.
That almost allows him to get the better of Holmes, were it not for Holmes's final barbed riposte.
If you aspire to be accepted into English society, you do well to remove the band from your Havana before lighting it. Otherwise, you'll be put down for a bounder.
This episode moves at a stellar pace, as each scene layers on more and more detail about our key players. And while there is no mystery to investigate per se, it is just as engaging as any of the crimes Sherlock Holmes is called upon to solve. We have a fantastically wicked villain in Baron Gruner, a seemingly impossible task for Holmes to overcome, and the action is as tense as it gets. Holmes returns to Baker Street, where Watson is waiting, along with one of Holmes's informants, Shinwell Johnson, and a woman named Kitty Winter, who has encountered the Baron personally and wants to see him brought down. She tells them he collects women and china, both as trophies. She was an artist's model who he romanced, then abused, injuring her in ways that meant she can never model again. As Kitty and Shinwell leave, they are pursued by two thugs, and Shinwell has to take action, just as Sherlock Holmes has received a death threat. Meanwhile, the Baron peruses his book of collected women and adds Violet's picture to that collection. The next day, Holmes takes Kitty to see Violet, and she begrudgingly agrees to see them, but the Baron has her well trained, dismissing Holmes and Kitty, based on the Baron's words.
My fiancé assures me you are no longer what you were. A spent force. And you, Miss Winter? Surely you must also be superfluous.
Holmes' counsel seems to break through Violet, but she steels herself against his words.
I am aware my fiancé has had a stormy life, in which he has incurred most unjust aspersions.
So Kitty speaks to her sorrow at the hands of the Baron, and goes so far as to reveal the acid burn he left on her neck and chest. This again seems to reach Violet, but still not enough, and Kitty leaves, followed by Holmes.
Miss Winter!
Violet's resolve is almost enough for Holmes to leave her to her fate, but he is determined to bring the Baron to justice. Just then, Holmes is attacked by two more of the Baron's hired goons, but he is not so lucky as Shinwell was and comes off the worst for it. Recuperating in his bed, Watson offers to thrash the Baron, but Holmes dissuades him of this notion and tells him to ensure that Kitty is sent somewhere safe, before telling him they must exaggerate Holmes's injuries. Holmes also develops a plan, as the Baron plans to set sail for America in a few days. Watson is to become an overnight expert in Chinese pottery. He is then to go to the Baron with a piece of expensive china, part of a set he's looking to sell, which will hopefully be enough to put the Baron off taking the trip, and give Holmes a little more time. As Watson heads for the Baron's home, Kitty jumps onto the back of his carriage, but he's gone before he arrives. At the Baron's, Watson performs excellently, up to a point, before the Baron reveals he knows it's a ruse, at which time Holmes arrives and the Baron threatens to shoot him. Unbeknownst to them all, Kitty runs in and flings acid into the face of the Baron before fleeing. In the confusion, Holmes secures the Baron's book and delivers it to Sir James to break the spell on Violet.
But surely, if these injuries are as terrible as you describe them, then our purpose is sufficiently gained.
Should love him the more. As a disfigured martyr, no. It is his moral side, not his physical, which we have to destroy.
As Sir James leaves in a royal carriage, Watson finally twigs who their illustrious client is. This is a sensational episode. The plot, the performances, the shot selections, all first class. Baron Gruner is a superbly despicable villain, with no redeeming qualities as he physically and mentally tortures his way around the women of Europe, or just flat out murders them, collecting and displaying them as he does his precious china. Violet risks being equally unsympathetic as she stands by her man, but as we learn not just how she has been manipulated by the Baron, but also what he did to Kitty and could be capable of doing to her, we are reminded that she has not seen what we have. She's only had his twisted version of events, painting him as the victim, a common tactic of abusers. We also see Watson's humanity as he rushes to help the Baron after he has received his comeuppance, where men of weaker resolve might have just let him suffer. And Holmes at his most brilliant as he realises the Baron's injuries will only bring him and Violet closer if Holmes isn't able to retrieve the Baron's private collection. The only minor complaint I have is that I wish they'd disguised Kitty a little when she jumps onto Watson's carriage, to make her look like one of the thugs and make it seem as if Watson is in jeopardy, rather than making it clear that it's Kitty that travels with him to the Baron's home, as I think it over-telegraphs what is coming. That is a very minor complaint though, and this is one of my favourite episodes of the entire show. 5 out of 5. Thank you. Goodbye.